General Meeting schedule. We will award the treasure from Field Day. We talked about the award to the club members who showed up at Field Day. We have 2 radios here. Brian is going to make some brief comments about Field Day. We'll hear more about it in scope in August. So with that, now that Mike is finally back, who has the accurate time? Let's see.
1930.
No, we have 1 more minute. No, this is 1930 by Sprint. So we'll go with Sprint. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Moving covers. Color guard advance. Color guard, post the colors. Please place your right hand over your heart. Repeat with me the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Color guard dismissed.
Kevin, if you'll do the honor. Really talented young man.
Very well. All right, we're pleased this evening to be able to present an HT radio to Zach Anderson, KM6PHY. As you know, here in the Palomar Amateur Radio Club, when a Boy Scout earns this radio merit badge and then goes on and passes his technician exam, we give that scout a HT radio. So Zach did just that. He earned his radio merit badge, then he went on and took the test and passed, obviously, has a call sign. So I'm going to present him with an HT radio here in a moment. And Zach, just to let you know, the scouts that did the opening flag ceremony, they are from Troop 722. They're from St. Francis in Vista. And so really appreciate them coming out and standing tall and doing the flag ceremony. So hold on, I'm going to get the radio for Zach. Okay, most of you are familiar with this radio as a starter radio. Yes, it is a Bowline, it's a UV5. I programmed 10 frequencies. The first frequency in channel 1 is on the PARC 730 repeater, and every Wednesday at 1900 hours, like tonight, is the Boy Scout net. So when you turn this radio on, or put their antenna on, turn it on, and you're going to automatically show up on one of our 2-meter repeaters. And you announce your call sign, and see if somebody responds back to you. All right, so it's charged up and it's programmed. Also, if there's any of the PARC members who live in the vicinity of St. Francis or go to St. Francis, and you would like to be an Elmer for Zach, please, catch up with us after the meeting. So thanks so much, Zach. All right, thank you. It's Wednesday, we moved a long time ago. Yeah, it's Wednesday, 1900. We were on it when we were driving in today. All right, thanks so much, Zach. All right. Thanks, brother.
And my congratulations and welcome to the ham radio fraternity. Hope you have a lot of fun. Short award presentation here. A firm believer in the fact that when people do great jobs, they need to be recognized. And many of us have opportunities to do that for the ham radio fraternity. AG6CF, Brian. Those of you who attended the field day presentations or the fun probably saw an exceptionally well done field day. I have here an ARRL Elmer Award for Brian. This award is presented to Brian Tagg, 86 CF, in recognition for providing unselfish and benevolent assistance to the novice radio operator. I'll also say to the technicians, the generals, and the extras who were at field day. By carrying on the time-honored tradition in amateur radio of sharing knowledge and providing guidance and support, you are ensuring that others may experiment the wonder, excitement, and friendship of amateur radio. This expression of gratitude is presented by me, Charles Ristroselli, on behalf of the Palomar Amateur Radio Club for your superb planning and execution of Field Day 2016. How many here have a recollection of a ham who had a little bit of fame in town? AC6V. Yeah. One of the great Elmers in ham radio. Well, I have an Elmer Award for recognition of a job very much like he did with the GOTA station. NE60, Jim Cooper, come up here, please. This is an ARRL Elmer Award presented to Jim Cooper, NE60, in recognition for providing unselfish and benevolent assistance to the novice radio operator. And that was a heck of a GOTA station that you ran with all sorts of technology for people to get their hands on. By carrying on the time-honored tradition in amateur radio of sharing knowledge and providing guidance and support, you are ensuring that others may experience the wonder, excitement, and friendship of amateur radio. This expression of gratitude is presented by me on behalf of the Palomar Amateur Radio Club in recognition of the care and technical acumen you demonstrated as PARC GOTA captain at Field Day 2016. John, oh, don't break it. Oh, it's just N6KI. Probably didn't know it had knobs on it. Thought it was a software-defined radio.
Well, good evening. I get to have my little chance to introduce our special guests. We have two guests here tonight who deserve recognition. If my memory serves me correctly, the big hospital disaster communication support system started, we'll just say it, a few years ago. And when a therapy nurse was on duty at, I think it was St. Jude's Hospital, and the power went off, and she called a bunch of hands to come and fill in and do some emergency communications, and the group grew from that point on. It now numbers 70 hands up in Orange County. They serve every one of the 33 hospitals in Orange County. An amazing feat. In times of power outages, phone outages, standby operations, assistance to the medical people, for example, doing the communications for the medical people involved in the Disneyland half marathon. This group, as far as I'm concerned, is unique in the whole United States. It's an amazing compendium of people turning out at any hour of the day or night to bring ham radio communications as a backup in the hospital disaster support communications system. The lady who organized it is one of our special guests, and she's still the emergency coordinator with it. May I introduce, would you give a warm welcome, please, to WA6OBS, April Mell. And our guest speaker tonight, you've heard the phrase many times, oh, he wrote the book on the subject. Well, he really did. This is the ARRL manual on tea hunting, and our guest tonight was the author of it. This book you should have. You can get it at HRO. It's magnificent. It is loaded with all kinds of information on the different types of equipment that you can get, that you can make if necessary, tea hunting techniques, and all kinds of interesting stories that you can use. He is an advisor to the ARRL on tea hunting. He runs very high-level national and international tea hunting expeditions and competitions. He has written hundreds of magazine articles on the subject of transmitter hunting. He has spoken probably to hundreds of groups like this, and therefore is considered to be extremely knowledgeable in the field. We're very fortunate to have him here. At the same time, he manages to find time to be an assistant emergency coordinator with the hospital disaster communication support system on top of all of that. I've known him for many years. I have consistently found him to be warm, friendly, personable, helpful, resourceful, supportive, and just an all-around neat guy to be with or to work with. So it gives me a great honor to present W0OV Joe Moell.
Thank you. Am I going to have a projector? Who is doing the projector? All right, so we're waiting for the projector. And while we're waiting for the projector, let me ask, as I always do when I start out talking to a group, and this is a nice big group. Thank you for whatever you did to bring out this crowd. You did a great job. I hope they're happy and satisfied. All right. Oh, they're going to have to really look up. Some of you are going to have neck strain by the time this evening's over, and I think I'm going to be good with that. But that's all right. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's see what happens. But I will ask the question that I normally do ask, which is, how many of you at some point in your ham radio career have gone on a competitive hidden transmitter hunt? Okay. And I say competitive to distinguish from, let's find that interference. That's another important thing you can use radio direction finding for, and I may talk a little bit about that tonight. But mostly it's the competitive aspect I'm going to talk about tonight because I think it's the most fun. And the emphasis is going to be on fun this evening, fun for the whole family. And that includes the scouts. Are the scouts still here? I hope that you'll think about, for example, doing some radio direction finding for your jamboree on the air coming up. I had a great time with Jim, I'm blanking on his last name, W5, down in Texas, who is really doing his best to get direction finding, transmitter hunting into the radio merit badge, the new merit badge that's going to be coming up. And that's something that's in work, and I really, really hope that comes to pass. All right. But anyway, as you can see from these photos, at one of our on-foot hidden transmitter hunting events, this one took place up in Lake Los Canaros near Santa Barbara. The emphasis is on fun for all ages and for the whole family. But I got to start out by telling you that there's really two distinct kinds of competitive hidden transmitter hunting. And I won't say that never the twain shall meet, but I will say that mostly the people that do one don't do the other. And that's almost too bad. I know a few that do. In fact, the fellow in the lower left corner here, Dick Arnett, WB4SUV, shown in his mobile transmitter hunting setup, is also a world-class on-foot transmitter hunter who has gone to the World Championships. So it does happen. And then, of course, the other gentleman is obviously an on-foot hidden transmitter hunter, one of the fellows from Albuquerque, New Mexico. So you'll find that, as I say, there are two distinct different kinds. I'm going to start off by talking about the mobile kind, mainly because it's been going on in Southern California for the longest period of time. Am I too loud or too soft? I seem real loud. Right. Okay, very good. Here in Southern California, we have, well, it seemed like pretty much any Saturday night you could go to the top of this hill in Fullerton, and you would see a row of cars doing, and guys getting out and chatting with one another. They all have strange antennas on the top. Now, you can't do that now. Well, you can go to the top of this hill, and the cars are all there, but there's also million-dollar homes up and down this road. That'll give you an idea how long this has been going on. But anyway, obviously these fellows are getting ready to go on a hidden transmitter hunt. And the inset in the upper right is a similar group in the Albuquerque, New Mexico area. It does go on in many different places throughout the country. And the neat thing about the hidden transmitter hunts, and we were talking about this a little at dinner, this is kind of ham versus ham, kind of like spy versus spy. The hider is out to make it an interesting evening for you, and you never know where you're going to end up. And you never know what you're going to find. And that's my favorite part of the whole thing. You may end up for example, as on the left, out in the middle of the mountains, or at least the hills of Orange County, and you see a big antenna and a big radio and a big battery. Actually, that's not a 2-meter radio, is it? What band is that? That's actually 6 meters. We do have 6-meter transmitter huts in Southern California. So it may be in plain sight, or maybe not so plain. Look at that picture on the right, which was actually from quite a few years ago at the ARRL convention up in Ventura, where the hider, Daryl KF60I, took a radio and a big battery, and he hollowed out the inside of the Ventura County phone book. And he put the radio in there. Now you could do that without banging. You could use a much smaller phone book, right? Anyway, he dropped it in there, he flipped the cover closed, and stuck it under, I told you this was a long time ago, a phone booth. The obvious place to look for it. Try to find a payphone now. So it's a little hard to do this trick now, but anyway, you can imagine when that transmitter came on the air, all the people at the convention going and trying to find it. Obviously, this was something that you couldn't find with your eyes. You do need some radio direction finding equipment, and we'll talk about the equipment you'll need to do that. And again, in Southern California, we love to have fun with hidden transmitter hunting, and would you suspect this person of being involved in the hidden transmitter hunt? This was another one of the hunts that started from Skyline, the first picture I showed you. And this took place, again, we've been doing this a while, this took place when the main place vault was first opening. Again, that goes back a few years. There were a couple stores open, but mostly it was a big parking lot. And everybody got to that parking lot, and they're driving around this parking lot, and the signal might be moving. Anyway, there's this woman, this bag lady, pushing a grocery cart. Would you have gone up to this person and asked if she was the hidden transmitter? Oh, well, I will tell you who this person is because April's laughing here. This is April's sister, K0OV, who was married to a gentleman in Orange County at the time, and they worked this out together. They were the hiders for this hunt, and April and I were hunters on this hunt. And if you look down in the bag, in the grocery cart, there is indeed a transmitter and a battery in the whole 9 yards. So again, you never know where you're going to end up, and you never know what you're going to find. My favorite story, at least in front of radio clubs, my favorite story, is from a hunt that started off in the San Gabriel Valley on one Sunday afternoon and ended up in a park. Now, usually parks are more fun when they're really well, when they're full of foliage and you can hide transmitters in them. But here is something, you get to this park and it's really not much there, except this nice young lady who was sunbathing on her blanket, reading her book, and the signal is really, really loud where Tanya is. So these two hunters went up to her and screwed up their courage and said, ma'am, would you mind getting up so we can check under your blanket for a hidden transmitter? She got up. She stepped away from the blanket. They carefully checked the blanket. There was no signal coming from under the blanket. The signal was coming from Tanya. The fellow that's put on this transmitter hunt worked carefully with Tanya to build a very tiny transmitter that was in the top of her bikini with the antenna and the strap. April's saying this. You want to say that?
It gives a whole new meaning to underwire bra.
Anyway, you never know where you're going to end up, and you never know what you're going to find. And these fellows really found something interesting on this hidden transmitter hunt that Sunday afternoon. Now, I booked you. Are you all ready to go on the next transmitter hunt? I can assure you they're not always this intriguing, but we can dream, can't we? And a lot of people say, well, Joe, what's so hard about hidden transmitter hunting? I mean, direction finding on 2 meters, what's the big deal? You got an antenna, you turn it, you get a bearing, you put it on the car, you drive a little way, signal gets stronger, you might make a few mid-course corrections, maybe you plot a few things on the map, eventually you get there, everybody finds it, and then you go have ice cream sundaes. And I wish it was quite that simple, but remember I told you this is hand versus hand. So the idea is that the hider is trying to do some challenging things to make it interesting for you, and he's got a lot in his bag of tricks. Here are just some of the things that hiders can do to make hidden transmitter hunting interesting. Obviously, the signal parameters. Now, depending on what the rules allow, obviously every hunt has some rules, some have more than others, and they may or may not allow you to have 10 millisecond transmissions, for example. That might make it a little bit difficult, but most of the beginner hunts usually are continuous transmission, no power variations, no changes in the modulation, it's FM, not noise, that sort of thing. But if the hunt allows that, maybe you go and do some other things. Inaccessible, and then of course I have to point out that antenna on the right is motorized and is turning and spraying signal toward the hills of southern Orange County. But let's talk about inaccessibility for a minute. As I said, you never know where you're going to end up. You never know what you're going to find. But out there somewhere is a hider that's hoping that somehow, somewhere before the 8th day is over, you're going to end up in a situation like this. This may or may not, this is probably not the road to the hidden T. But he's hoping that maybe the signal makes you want to go there. So again, you never know what's going to happen. Now, what usually, the way this is done is by big reflectors on 2 meters, little reflectors on other bands, higher bands actually. But this is, of course, Cucamonga Peak, especially in the wintertime when there's snow on it, it makes a wonderful reflector. Now, the K0OV pictures I'm going to show you are related to Orange County, but I'm sure you can think of analogs for down here in this part of California. But I'll just talk to you about what we find very, very often in the Orange County area and the LA area, and that is the infamous Baldy bounce, where you start the hunt from the top of the skyline, that picture I showed you at the beginning in Fullerton, and this is a real easy hunt because look at this, the boundaries only go to the 605 freeway, Prado Dam, down to Newport Beach, you know, really, really small boundaries. This hunt was intended for beginners. Yeah. But the hider goes over here and hides by Rose Hill Cemetery and points his beam toward Mount Baldy. And there is no way that that signal is going to go off the side of the beam and go through these hills and get to Fullerton. So here you are in Fullerton, you're turning your antenna, and where is the signal coming from? It's coming from right up the 57th freeway toward Mount Baldy. It's coming right down that canyon. So what are you going to do? You got to follow the signal, right? So you go flying up the 57th freeway. And if you get to the boundaries and remember, you might say, there's something wrong here, because you're still getting that signal from Mount Baldy. You're not getting much direct signal. And of course, what are you going to do? You've got to drive the boundaries, so you might drive 80 miles to find a transmitter that's 20 miles away. That's what the hider's hoping you're going to do. By the way, I should point out that in transmitter hunting, we kind of score mobile hunts one of 2 ways. The obvious way is first finder wins. And that's okay, but sometimes that encourages some rather dangerous driving. And so many of the groups, in fact, most of the groups, prefer to run it like a road robin, where everybody gathers at the starting point and takes their odometer mileage. And at the end, they look at the odometer again, and whoever found the transmitter with the least mileage is the winner. And that actually makes it a little bit more interesting if you stop and think about it. But let's look at the Baldy bounce again, which can occur one of 2 different ways. Imagine we do the same thing as we did before at Rose Hill Cemetery, and now we do it out at Prado Dam. And yes, you can do the same thing because you've got a clear shot at Mount Baldy. There's no way the signal's going to come through the San Juan Hills. And so we have that same Baldy bounce sounding signal, except when you get to the up here, you say, well, no problem, I know it was over at Rose Hills. You discover that it's not. And again, you drive 80 miles to find a signal 20 miles away. So again, I told you that's higher. I don't want to make this sound like it's unpleasant. I mean, it can be a very pleasant drive to drive those 80 miles. Especially if you got the family with you and they're all saying, when's this going to be? No. Anyway, now, other things can bounce too. This is a different hunt. You notice this hunt has much bigger boundaries. It's another different one of the Saturday night hunts. And here from the start, and most of the way, the signal appears to be coming from out in the San Bernardino area, maybe out of bounds, maybe not, but it's not always there. It's there for maybe a couple of minutes, it comes up, and then it just goes down in the noise. A couple of minutes later, it comes up, and it goes down in the noise. Now, the hider is not supposed to be doing anything with the power on this hunt. So what could be happening? Anyone guess? I'm not sure what that is supposed to mean there. No, it could have been, but that's not what this is. No, in this particular case, the hider was clear down here by Lake Elsinore, pointing his beam, trying to get a volley bounce, but what he was actually doing was bouncing off the airplanes coming into the pattern toward the airports in Orange County and LA County. And so so obviously if you follow that bearing, you're not gonna get there anytime soon. So again, and we didn't, April saying, she's absolutely right. All right, enough about that. Not all hunts are like that. Some are. When you see a bounce bearing toward Baldy, you know you're in for a long evening, however, I gotta tell you that. Well, okay, now you get out into the middle of nowhere, and you see something like this. Have you found the hidden transmitter? Maybe it could be the hidden transmitter. It could, however, be a decoy. Sometimes that happens. And worse yet, what happens when you get out there and this is what you see? Where's the hidden transmitter now? That's the neat thing about technology. It gets better and better. Transmitters get smaller and smaller, and you can put them in lots of other places. John knows this one because he was talking about it at dinner. John loves this one. The one that was put on, the first time I saw it done was put on by Walt Brockman of the UA6SJA. And what he did, of course, is, yes, this is obviously, looks like a sprinkler head. This is a 19-inch piece of pipe. This is actually a piece of PVC at the bottom. And if you were to brush away the debris, you'd see there's some actual pipe radials underneath. So yes, this is a ground plane, quarter wave, transmitting antenna for a hidden transmitter on 2 meters, but I gotta tell you, he ran a little hose to it and that guy dripped water. And if you were in a park and there was one of these every 30 feet, could you have found the hidden transmitter, okay? Now here's another camouflage antenna for you, the lead antenna that Joe and Joe down in San Diego County put on sometime back. They hung this from a tree. Yes, that's a dipole antenna that was hanging from a tree, need I say more. Now, as I said, transmitters are getting smaller and smaller, and the things you can do with them are great fun. For example, is there a hidden transmitter anywhere in this picture? Well, yes. I was out scouting a spot for the Orange County hunts, and I encountered this pile of 2x4s in a construction site. This one looked promising, so I took it to the shop of Tom Curley, WB6UZZ. That call sign isn't familiar. It's on the cover of the book because he is my co-author. He also has a really fine wood shop and metal shop for that matter too. So we sliced it open like a bagel, and there's a battery in there now. That is at the edge of a circuit board, that one like you saw in the picture there a minute ago. And we put it all in there, slapped the 2 tabs together, put it back, and there it was. Again, would you have suspected something like that? No, you need good gear in order to find a hidden transmitter like that. So let's spend a few minutes, very few minutes, talking about the gear that you would use to find hidden transmitters like this. Obviously, for mobile hunts, you need to mount some sort of a directional antenna. We're going to talk about 2-meter hunts, but this analogs to many of the other bands. What's the difference between all of these Yagis that are at Montgomery Field for this convention hunt down in San Diego a few years ago? What's the difference? Polarization, that is correct. Vertical, horizontal, something in between. Why is that important? What happens if the transmitter is horizontal and you're hunting vertical? Not only are you many, many dB down for direct signal, but all those reflections off the hills could be reflecting back in the polarization of your antenna, so the reflections are going to be stronger than the real signal. So you've got to make an effort to figure out what polarization the hider's using, if you don't already know and he doesn't tell you, which you probably won't. And then you're going to have to make allowances. The other popular antenna for mobile hunting, and I think even more popular, is the cubical quad. There are 2 types. A quad can be mounted a little closer to the roof, doesn't have to be quite as high to be effective. And you can do the same things with polarization using slip joints there in the center, no problem at all. This is what's called the strung wire quad. You'll notice it has plexiglass cross arms and then very thin wire for the elements on the vehicle, the K0OV 6JSX. Now, what's the problem there? The problem is the quad eating willow. Driving under those low-hanging trees, there's a pretty good chance you're going to snag that antenna and break it. And if you've got your soldering iron with you, you're back in the hunt after a little bit. I much prefer the stiff wire quad made from maybe number 10, number 12 gauge solid wire. Doesn't have to be insulated. And if you can get that can get mangled by a tree too, but it's a lot easier to put back in shape and get back in the hunt. Plans for both of those, by the way, are in the book. If you're interested in building an antenna, it's really not that difficult to build an antenna for mobile transmitter hunting. And it's really not difficult to mount the antenna either. Look at some of these really ugly mounting methods that I've seen. Here's we're just going right down into the window. Here's what it is down there on the armrest. Here's what some people have done to kind of hold it in place there at the top of the window. Wire, something made out of sheet metal, something like this also works on the armrest. And then notice the direction indicator made from the vice grips. Hey, it works, and you're in the hunt. And you could be hunting this Saturday night, so it really works. Now, people get fancy. Some people like, this mobile mount holds the antenna through the passenger side door. That works real well. Here's something really fancy made out of PVC pipe. Notice that the passenger can turn the antenna and the driver can turn the antenna through these lever arms, and the antenna is mounted nicely in the center of the roof, so you don't have any serious overhang problems. And I'm going to talk about overhang a little bit. This is how April and I got started. Yes, there's a Doppler here. We'll talk about that later. But right now, we've got this antenna coming down through the right side window. It's a cubicle quad. Why? And April is in there getting ready to turn it, even if you can't see her. The question is, why is it not on the driver's side? Why is it not on the driver's side? Safety. That's absolutely correct. As a matter of fact, the law. Because the law allows you to have zero overhang beyond the line of the fingers on the driver's side of the vehicle. It allows you 1 foot on the passenger side, which is enough to get that 4-element quad and make it legal. So that's why we did it, and that's why April hated it, because I kept reaching across her face to grab that antenna because, well, she could turn the antenna. She was excellent at it, but I just kind of wanted occasionally to do it myself, So that's really not a good way to, have your marriage get better. So we ended up doing, as you can see here, like every other vehicle here at Montgomery Field for this hunt, every one of these vehicles has the big hole in the roof. 1.25-inch hole, allows you to put a mast through it, turn the mast. By the way, this works for your 2-meter antenna. It works for any other band you want to hunt, so that's fine too. Well, what's the advantage of that? First of all, you can have a 4-foot boom without any overhang at all. And that's an advantage. The driver can turn the antenna, the passenger can turn the antenna, the guy in the back seat can turn the antenna. No problems when it's raining if you take some care. And so it's really a very genteel way to hunt, and you'd be surprised how many of the serious transmitter hunters have done it. Now, there's a number of ways you can bring that antenna through the roof. This is one I saw where the guy used a marine fuel bedding. Well, it's nice when he's not hunting, obviously, to so you can cover it up, keep the rain out, and not likely to have a lot of rain come sliding along the roof and up into that hole when it is raining. So it's not too bad, except this guy's forgotten 2 things. Number one, there is a hole inside PVC pipe for coax to go through, so I don't know why he doesn't have the coax running down through the middle. The other reason is, or the other problem is, the attentiveness of gas station attendants. I worry about things like that, okay? Now this is what we've been using for some years. We have the antenna coming through the roof console on top when we're not hunting. We've got a little cap for it. It's all made out of PVC fittings. And yes, we have a rain deflector just in case when it's raining and people are going down that mast into the vehicle. Again, it doesn't have to cost a lot to get started in hunting. Now down at the bottom, we've got a little compass rose here so we know what direction the antenna is pointing. We have a radio, which is not necessarily the radio I'm going to be using. And the other thing, there's one other thing in this picture that's very, very important if you're a mobile transmitter hunter. The attenuator. If you don't have something to knock down the signal, you're not going to get very close to that transmitter because your S meter, and you do want to use an S meter, is going to be pinned totally all the time. So you do need some sort of an RF attenuator. This one is easy to make, plans the book. And again, there are kits available, and you can find attenuators surplus at the swap meets and that sort of thing. So you'll want that. Now, some of you are saying, this is the 21st century. Why do I want such a, ancient system? Well, number one, because it works. But number two, is there something better? And the answer is, yeah, this is what you'd kind of like if you were looking for the perfect direction finding system, right? Something you could put on a rental car and maybe something to hook to your computer and do some other fun things with. Do we have such a thing? Do we have such a thing? Yes. And actually it's been around for some time. This is the 1970s. Doppler radio direction finders have been around. The 4 antenna types are the most common, but you'll see them with more antennas, or even fewer. 3 will work, 2 not so much. And something in common with all of these Doppler sets. You can't buy them anymore, at least not new. So a lot of Doppler sets have come and gone into the ham radio market. And some of them were good, and some of them weren't quite as good. What is available today? Well, obviously you can build your own. There is plans in the book. But then there's also the K0OV, which is developed by a gentleman in Santa Barbara, which is pretty good. It uses a single PIC IC and a few other components, and it's about as good as it could be, because he does do it right in terms of having switching both at the control end and at the antenna end. And this is what the bottom of each of the antennas look like. This is a rather small compass ring or ring of LEDs. Here's one with a lot more, and it has a 3-digit readout also. So you can buy these boards from him, build your own unit, and by the way, we'll talk to a computer, as I will talk about in a minute, and you'll be on your way. Or you might want to consider this. Now, you probably have seen this advertised on the ARRL website. There's a Chinese gentleman who is has gotten a factory basically in China to build K0OVs. And he sells it as a kit, but a kit, well, I guess I don't have the picture here, but I will tell you basically that the kit is a box, a board, and some antenna bases, and it's pretty much there. You just sort of kind of screw it all together and you're done. I think it's a kit because that way he doesn't have to get it FCC certified. So it's really very, very simple to put together. It includes everything but the whips themselves. There are a couple of minor problems with it, but it will get you going. Now, even the best Dopplers are not perfect, and this is why you'll still see most of us using the quads and beams for most of our hunts. And one of the reasons is the hunts tend to be weak signal here in Southern California, particularly with all the hills and everybody liking to use low power. So a Doppler is great for hunting jammers, because a jammer likes to run a lot of power, and his signal is usually vertically polarized. So that's the ideal thing for a Doppler, but for the rest of the hunts, not so much. So here's some things about Dopplers that you need to think about if you're thinking of one. And if you look at my vehicle, when I'm out hunting, you will see that there's a beam on the front and a Doppler on the back, because there are times and places for both of them. But the neat thing about the Dopplers is they will talk to computer programs that will plot maps. And the fellow, Bob Simmons, that came up with K0OV, has also developed what's called Google Hunt. And what it does is display your Doppler bearings on Google Maps, right there in your vehicle with a PC. I don't know how to do it with any of the other types of computers you might have in your car, but I can talk about that also later. But you'll notice that he's got it as if you could have like some fixed stations here, here, and here, and they're all going to get bearings, they're all going to triangulate, and son of a gun, the signal we're looking for is right there. Is that logical? Is that practical? No. Dopplers at best, if there's no multipath, if there's no reflections, if there's no anything else, still are only good to about plus or minus 5 degrees. So what really happens, because I hear people say this, they say, well, gee whiz, if we're going to fix all the problems on our repeater, we're going to have a few of these Dopplers set up at high places all around it. We're going to have our bearings all linked together, and we're going to know exactly where the jammer is. Well, not exactly. Because if you plot those 5-degree uncertainties, forgetting about the rest of them, you end up with an area where the guy might be, but not necessarily a pinpoint where the guy might be. So that's why we still need mobile hunters. And if you've got problems on your repeater and you want to have some one solved, you're going to have to deploy some mobile hunters. Now, obviously, sometimes your vehicle won't get you all the way, and you're going to have to get out of the car and shoot a bearing. Again, I tell you, I've seen everything on these hunts. I don't know what this guy thought he was doing, but he had fun with it. Or this guy either. It's K6KRD, and he basically took all his gear off of his car and carried it around. He's got his attenuator in his pocket, his radio on his belt, and that's too cumbersome. And then this is really cumbersome, with the 2-meter antenna and then trying to get harmonics when he gets real close. Not really a good idea. So what people are using now for on-foot hidden transmitter hunting is really kind of cool. First of all, they're using antennas made of measuring tape. You may have seen this. This is Joe Moell of WB2HOL. He is the first person to actually publish plans for such an antenna on the web, and his design is still pretty much a standard design that you can look up on the web, and you can build for yourself. It's fairly easy. We sometimes have actual building sessions at some of our hunts where people build these antennas and then immediately go out and hunt. But you still need to find a way to knock down the signal. And what happens if you try to use one of those ordinary resistive attenuators? It's not going to work. The signal is going to go right around that attenuator into the radio case, and it's going to, you probably noticed this, even if you take the antenna off your radio sometimes, you're going to get signals. So you need some sort of a way to do that. And this was developed first by a fellow over in the Netherlands some years ago, but it's been refined over the years to use more common components. And that it is basically an offset attenuator. What it is basically a third stage of super heterodyne for your radio, because you have an oscillator. 4 megahertz is common, 2 megahertz is possible if your radio won't go out of band, and a diode mixer. And what happens is you're hunting on 146.565, you turn this on, you tune your radio 4 megahertz up to 150.565, and son of a gun, there's a signal that this thing has created for you that you can adjust in intensity up to almost full signal and down to 100 dB down. Works real well. Here's what one looks like. You can build it for yourself out of parts from Radio Shack. Well, yeah, I used to say that. I'm not 100% sure you can get the parts at Radio Shack, but you can certainly get them at DigiKey. And very easy to build. Or there are kits available. There are circuit boards available. That circuit board up on the right, you can buy from PARC K6HTS. Put it in a box like this, and you're ready to knock down signals and go walking and find hidden transmitters. And that's what set us up for on-foot hidden transmitter hunting that is taking place more and more, like at the Hamfest I was showing you, where the antenna or where the radio was in the phone book, and other places that hiders like to put things at conventions. So it's a common thing at Hamfest. It's a great thing for scouts. We'll talk a little more about scouts. We have these. This is another convention hunt where we had it at Angels Gate Park. And then there's the international version of what goes by several names: radio orienteering, because there is a big orienteering component, foxtailing, foxteering, and ARDF. If you hear the term ARDF, that's not a generic term. It's really specific to a form of hidden transmitter hunting on foot that is done internationally under international rules. And it's done in big wooded parks. It is great for physical abilities and, of course, mental abilities, because it is kind of a thinking sport. And really, because it is in such a big area, the orienteering skill is just as important as direction finding skill. Everybody can participate. We've got young people. We've got not nearly young people. We have people in wheelchairs. We have pretty much everybody can do it. And maps are a key component of it when it is done in a big area. This is an orienteering map. If you've never seen an orienteering map before, here's one. This is Fallen Leaf Lake, which is up by Lake Tahoe, actually. And this is the map for a typical ARDF event, except the transmitters have been marked. When you go to an ARDF event, you get a map, and the transmitters aren't marked on it. But the start and finish are. The start is a triangle. It's start here, finish here at this bullseye. There will not be any trend in a competitive event for medals internationally. There will not be any transmitters within 700 meters of the start or 400 meters of the finish. So you're going to have to do a little bit of running or walking. In this particular event, there's a start. There's a transmitter here, 4. There's a transmitter here, number 2. There's a transmitter here, number 3. Transmitter here, number 5, and transmitter here, number 1. Your mission, because you're going to hear all these transmitters one at a time, starting with number 1 on one frequency for 1 minute each. So your mission is to figure out a way to get to all these transmitters and then get to the finish faster than anybody else. Obviously, you want to take a good route. You want to avoid hilltops. You want to avoid, you want to keep it, you want to find trails where you possibly can. And you want to pick a route that doesn't call for any backtracking. So what might you do? You might go over here and find 4, 2, 3, 5, 1, finish. That might be one really good route. So that's kind of your mission, to try to figure that out before you start. Now, this sort of hidden transmitter hunting is done on 2 bands internationally. 2 meters, yes, it is done on 2 meters, where it's done, where it uses AM signals, which are about the same as hunting FM, and 80 meters. Can you imagine doing this on 80 meters? The beam for 80 meters is something to behold. Nobody uses one. No, instead, what they use, well, think about this. You've got a little plate with a pocket AM transistor radio, right? And you may have noticed that when you're listening to KFI or whatever you listen to down here, as you turn the radio, the signal goes up and down. You ever wondered why that is? There's a ferrite rod antenna inside the radio to pick up the signal, and that rod is directional. And we basically use that feature for 80-meter hidden transmitter hunting. So there's a rod in this set. This is actually a loop instead of a rod. This is a loop instead of a rod. Here's a loop. This is a rod, and here's another loop. So there's 2 different kinds, and those loops are bidirectional, and there is a way to resolve that involves a third antenna or a second antenna that I won't go into here. The courses in an international hunt can be interesting. This was the finish of one of the hunts in Cincinnati some years ago, and it was supposed to cross a small creek. The night before the hunt was a big rain. So everybody had to cross, run on water to get to the finish line on this hunt. And of course, this is another great thing for youth. We have people of all ages go to these hunts. USA has had a national championship of on-foot direction finding every year since 2001. And this was the one this year that took place down in Killeen, Texas, near Fort Hood. And we had competitors from 13 states. We had some visitors from Ukraine, from China, and it was open to everyone. And if you've never done this before, that's okay. We had some people that were there for the first time and they were just learning. If you think you're too old, our oldest competitor was age 75. And he completed the course and got medals. So, and these things have expanded. We used to have just 2 days of competition, 2 meters and 80 meters. Now, there are some additional events called sprints, fox oring. There are usually training days. So it becomes nearly a week of activity. And the winners of these hunts get invitations to go to the World Championships, which occur every 2 years. The even numbered years, actually. Again, the USA is competing against other nations and other radio societies, like Radio Amateurs of Canada. By the way, our people represent ARRL. ARRL is the IARU society, and IARU puts on these events. So we are allowed to send 3 people in each of the age and gender categories. How many are there? 11 categories. So if you're 70 years old, you're not competing against 21-year-olds. You're not even competing against 40-year-olds. There's a category just for people over age 70. So there's 6 categories for men, 5 for women. Don't ask me why they did it that way. Sorry, ladies, but that's kind of the way the International Committee did it. And, whoops, there we go. Push the button, push the right button. Now, over the years, the World Championships have taken place since 1980, every 2 years or so. And the Europeans, they kind of started it and they dominated. Back in 2008, 92% of the medals went to 3 countries, Russia, Ukraine, and Czech, partially because those countries have teams that train together all year. They can do it because the countries are small. It's a little hard to do in the USA when we've got people from states all over the country. They can't get together nearly as easily. They have, and they don't. And they what? Yeah. I don't think so. I don't think they do that in those countries, but we won't go there. They do have their own team doctor. This is Igor Lazarev, who's the team doctor for the Czech Republic. He's been over to the USA a few times, and every time he comes, we pick his brain trying to figure out the secrets of some of these Ukrainian runners, because they really, really are good. But we are sending a team. Right now, there is a team of 16 hams. This is not them. This is a picture from 4 years ago, but the team's going to look like a motley crew like that. Getting ready for the 18th World Championships, which will take place in Bulgaria in the second week of September. We have 10 ONs. There are 6 YLs on the team. 4 of them are new. They've never been in the World Championship before, and 12 of them are returning. We don't have any youth this time, and we rarely do. It's a little hard to get youngsters to get permission to go to foreign countries, unless their parents can take them and that sort of thing. So it's generally for adults. We don't like it that way, but it's kind of the way it is. Plus that 75-year-old is going. We have 8 states represented in our team this year, and 3 of them are from California. So are they going to win medals? Well, we started going in 1998. We didn't win any medals at all until 2006, 1 medal. 2008, 1 medal. 2010, 3 medals. 2012, what happened here? 13 medals. Part of that was they had an additional competition for individuals in that year, so there were more medals being awarded. Back in 2014, we went back to 1 medal. Why is that? Small team. Nobody wanted to go to Kazakhstan. It's true. We did have a team. We had about a dozen people, but it was not a good time in the world. So Bulgaria, we're going back again. This time we don't know how many medals, but we're really pushing for Team USA. And if you want to follow this sort of stuff, there's information on the web, and some of it's even live streamed, so you can find out a lot about it. It's certainly an up-and-coming sport that nobody seems to know about. But we're trying very hard here in Southern California to get people to do it, to try it, and to try on-foot hunting in general, just because it's fun. Here's some pictures from one of our sessions at Benelli Regional Park, which is up by Raging Waters, if you know where that is. And we try to have both some transmitters for the beginners and some transmitters that are a little bit more advanced every time. We also try very hard to do this for the Scouts. We will be doing it once again this year, probably at Cabrillo Youth Center in San Pedro for a jamboree on the air. We'd love to see that happen in some other places around the country. I think that's all I'm going to say about the on-foot hunting. I will, because I know I'm running low on time, but I want to point out, as I mentioned before, that there are some really good uses of direction finding that aren't related to competition. When was the last time you launched that balloon and the APRS didn't work? And you had to find the balloon. Have you ever had to do that? April and I remember some nights up on mountains trying to track a balloon, but that's a long story. Wildlife researchers would love to have you, and they track everything from, by the way, this is a radio-equipped desert tortoise that I actually track. That's about my speed, folks. Project Lifesaver is not active anywhere around here, but it is up in San Luis Obispo County, where Alzheimer's patients are given little radio transmitters, and if they wander off, then they can be tracked by radio direction finding. The transmitters are around 215 megahertz. This is Sam Vigil, WA6NGH. Sam has been up on the sheriff's helicopter more than once with this quad hunting Alzheimer's patients. Particularly, he remembers the one that didn't just walk away from the facility, but got on a bicycle and went down the 101. So again, there's a place where your direction finding skills can serve a useful purpose, and then of course there's finding the bad guys. And if you don't recognize who that is, I won't go into detail with it, except to say that he was a big problem up in the Los Angeles area. And if any of our officials here tonight, I thought maybe Steve might be here or somebody like that. Who's your OO coordinator down here? Okay. I bet he would love to have some well-equipped direction finding hams to help him out. We certainly do up in LA and Orange County. The Amateur Auxiliary is alive and well, at least where I am, with agreements with the local FCC office, and do work together when the need arises. And they would love to have a few more people who know, direction finding and would be willing to help out. There is an OO coordinator in each section. If you're in the San Diego section, you can find it and get involved with that person, or better yet, just ask your section manager, who will definitely know about it. and I mentioned this for LA section and Orange section because that's where I do most of my talks. That they would also like to have you as an ARRL official observer. There's 700 of them in the USA, and certainly another place where you can use your direction finding skills. And this is obviously out of date because David Greenhut is not the head of the LA section anymore, but the point is find your ARRL section manager and they can tell you about it. I talked a little bit about transmitter hunts. One of the things we talked about at dinner was maybe we could get something going down here. I will point out that the way you get transmitter hunts going is probably the simplest. If you want the mobile hunts, here's some locally in Orange County if you wanted to go, but you're not going to do that. But the idea is do something maybe after the club net, have somebody go to a likely spot, start transmitting, say, come find me, and give everybody a chance. And don't worry too much about who wins or loses, just experiment with the gear, and pretty soon you'll have a hunting group. And then you can get really serious and go on the all-day hunts, which, by the way, start from Palos Verdes, and the boundaries are continental USA. And there have been 4 transmitters in 4 states on one weekend. Give you an idea of the amount of running that you have to do or amount of driving that you might have to do on that. So that's the end of my formal presentation. I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have. I understand that there's going to be a drawing for a book, and I'm going to let the gentleman that's doing that, well, I'm supposed to do something, he's pointing at me. But anyway, they haven't been handed out yet? Oh, they have, okay. Oh, he's going to draw, okay. 3, 2, 1. Oh, I'm to draw. Am I to, oh, you gave him one and I'm to draw, is that the deal? And I got a hat. Okay, this is great. All right. Not looking, not looking, not looking, not looking, not looking, not looking. Oh, all we have is a number. 334-720. 334. Bingo. All right. All right, here's a book for you. It can be if he brings it over. I certainly will. Let's do that as soon as we finish here. I see it's in N6N and I will get that on here. No problem. All right, I don't know how much time we have, so I'll just ask if there's any questions before we close out. Yes, sir.
There are designated frequencies on 2 meters for a party, but they're not. And if there are, and if there are more of these, how do we keep them there?
Good question. Okay, for the mobile hunts and for a lot of the on-foot hunts also, the designated frequency that TASMA has set aside, I mean, they're not, obviously it isn't patrol. It can be used for, the idea is the transmitter hunts are to have priority on it. 146.565 simplex. Now, some groups getting started, for example, the Orange County Races group has a hunt once a month, and they do it on the input of their repeater. You hunt on the input, and everybody can hear the signal on the output. So that's a great thing for a beginner hunt. But for when you have when I was telling you about that all-day hunt, that all-day hunt is going to be on 146.565. And the idea is to hopefully keep it clear throughout Southern California so that people can find it. And when there's more than one transmitter on a mobile hunt, they are almost always, but not always, almost always on that frequency. They're just not transmitting continuously. So you'll hear one come up an ID, and then you'll hear another one come up an ID. And I've been on some of these hunts where they get a little crazy and everybody puts on a transmitter and then everybody hunts each other's transmitters. You might have 40 transmitters out there. And yes, they're going to QRM each other a little. So what? The idea is they're not in sync, so they'll eventually move apart and you'll be able to find them. Now, for the on-foot hunts, we do often use 146.565 just for convenience. If there's a mobile hunt going on that day, we might go to another frequency. And sometimes when we have the small, very low power transmitters in the park, we'll use different frequencies so that people can find transmitters easily by just tuning to their frequency. Internationally, there is a problem with this because when we have the championships, the European radios do not go above 146. So to help our European guests, we oftentimes will have the in transmitter at the low end of 2 meters, down the 144 region where it's less likely to interfere with some repeater operations. But that is an issue that we have to deal with. So did that answer your question? Okay, very good. Any other questions? You guys got it all? Yes, sir.
You can do this with an HD and a rubber duck.
You can do it, yeah, I didn't talk about that for lack of time, but I will I'll basically say that that's true. Now, this antenna is not directional, but you can sort of make it directional this way, but yeah, the idea of the body fade sort of works. They work better. You know, I have seen people, one guy was an expert at it. He found an ELG, an aircraft ELG with body fade once in an airplane. It was very good. The idea is that you take the antenna off if it's strong, if not, leave it on, and hold the radio up to your chest like this, and then turn around, and what are you listening for?
No.
Yeah, the weakest signal, the null. And as one way used to say, the bigger the body, the better the bearing. And some of us are well equipped for that. Obviously, at some point, this may still be a problem. So what you might do is tune 5 kc off, 10 kc off, go to the third harmonic. There's lots of tricks you can do to knock down the signal without an attenuator. What's that? I am close to the speaker. That's what I do. All right.
My point was that
Yeah, go ahead.
you can have a ham picnic and everybody can participate.
That's right. That's right. And I've seen that done.
They do that at years, annual picnic, where they have 3 little tiny transmitters that are.
Okay.
Everybody takes the HD.
That works best when the transmitters are truly low power. And that's a good thing. And it's in a small area, that works real well.
They're running on a little button.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, and you can buy a little 50 milliwatt transmitter. As a matter of fact, there's 2 sources. Bob Simmons, the fellow that does PicoDop, also sells what's called a Squawk Box, which is a voice programmable transmitter of about 50 milliwatts. And then Brian Garabrandt, the fellow that brings you a lot of the APRS doodads, also sells hidden transmitters, and they're around about 15 milliwatts. He's got a more higher power version now, but it actually can be programmed on any 2-meter frequency. He's got one that's remote control.
You don't have to be a ham, you're just listening.
That's right.
So
You're absolutely right.
the kids are tired of sitting in the lawn chairs. Get them out and run around the radio.
That's a great idea. Yeah, give them. Oh, and I was going to mention the active attenuators. Sorry, Zach, they don't work with Baofangs. And it has to do with the SDR receiver that is in Baofangs. It has birdies and things that make it impractical to use with an active attenuator, and I can explain that offline if any of you want it. But if you want to use an active attenuator, the offset attenuator, like I showed you, you'll need to do it with KCOICOM, Kenwood, Lincoln, that sort of thing. Maybe even a Wuxia. Yes, sir. They're not in the book, but they are on the web. So they're easy to find. I should point out, homingin.com is my website. There's a lot of stuff there, including information about, there's a page just about, putting together a simple 2-meter direction finding setup. Whether, using the steel tape antenna, the attenuator. Plans for the attenuator are in that website. A link to plans for the beam are in that website because I use WB6 HUL's design, so I don't copy it, I link to it. And then, of course, a lot of information about the events that we have here in Southern California. So, and a few elsewhere in the country. And Team USA stuff. Other questions? Going once. Going twice. All right, thank you so much. You've been a great audience. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much for that presentation. I think it was most enjoyable, and a lot of people are thinking, so that's always good. I was roundly chastised a few minutes ago by having forgotten one thing that was at the beginning of the program. So I'm going to catch up now and do several things before we get on to the other things. Do we have any visitors tonight? Okay, well, let's see. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where from? Why here? All that stuff.
Hi, I'm Greg. Licensed less than 1 year, and I'm from San Diego. I work in this area, and I saw about the tea hunting presentation on the website. Figured I'd take a listen and see
See what I can learn.
Thank you very much.
What's your call sign?
Call sign?
Call sign KK6WLB.
Good for you. Next.
Hi, my name's Ryan, I'm 60NG, licensed, 3.5 weeks now. Started my license. So yeah, I live in Escondido, that's one of them. Yeah, at a equipment camp, and, I went to the field day, so that's how I found out about this.
Good. Oh, excellent.
Oh, what's that? KM60NG. Delta November.
Excellent day. Congratulations. Anybody else? Did I miss? Oh.
I'm Don, K0OV from Oro Valley, Arizona, and with the Oro Valley Radio Club. We just started having I guess, loaning of HD receivers and transmitters to newly licensed techs for 90 days, and they can see if they really want to go beyond 2 meters and 440.
KA2 what?
IYU.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, do we have somebody back here? I don't see a hand, so we can't.
You raised your hand. Oh, okay. I saw you raise your hand.
Glenn, you want to do your radio awards?
So just a reminder, if you, so in the last couple of issues of Scope, we've tried to put in links for all signs whose memberships might be expiring recently or within the next couple of months. So check the Scope or just check online. We currently have, as of today, when I put in, I believe, 2 brand new members, 249 members. And so we had a donation of 2 Galpon radios to be given away for people that attended the field day. And we had quite a good turnout. We had 75 people showed up on Saturday, 24 on Sunday. I don't remember how many on Friday or some, or maybe 30 for Friday. And anyway, I didn't give out tickets while we were there because I wasn't always at the table. So everyone who signed in, members of the club, got a ticket. So I've been shaking it around all afternoon. So I can have someone just pull out a ticket, read the call sign. KA9Q, are you here? No card. Okay. Well, I believe that we will contact him. That's the idea, right? Take a look again.
November 6th, Charlie Yankee.
Okay. So they will, we'll get their radios to them. I'm sure they're listed in the. Okay. All right. So thank you for everyone that came out for field day. It was my first field day. I was there all 4 days because we dropped off the towers on Thursday. It was long, it was dry, it was hot, it was rewarding, and it was very educational.
We're going to take a short break here so that Joe can gather his stuff and head back to the northern climes of Middle California. And then we're going to have some comments by Brian on how field day went, what our score appears to be. and some limited comments about business in general, so.
What we doing? Tired but recovered. I'm gonna go up and tell a story real quick. That's what I do.
We're gonna start the meeting again in about a minute, so, Don, if you would, expedite, please.
There was. I haven't seen it.
I've been trying to volunteer playing with weird projects I'm building today. And a couple other shared projects. There are days when I get
I got a smaller one. I don't know what I had last time. The flavor last time.
I got some ears chips or something.
Tonight it was a bacon wrap.
I'm watching this.
Wasn't good.
And the show ends. They start rolling their show.
Okay, folks, let's settle back down. We'll, carry on our meeting items while Joe, and it will head their way. But, we want to wrap this up, so, Brian? Come and tell us a little bit about field day.
Recorder back on.
Thanks, Charlie. I'll be quick. We had a good field day. The weather wasn't too bad. Had breeze most of the time. Not a lot of breeze, but enough. And let's see, I took the counts that Rick put together and some of the other stuff. A little spreadsheet, added it up, printed it out, folded it up, and left it on my desk at work. But we had a little over 5,200 points for QSOs, and with the other attendant activities, got almost 6,300 for a 3 alpha. So a lot of people came out and helped, some a lot aren't. bunch of people helped a lot, a bunch of people helped a little, and it all got done, and we got everything home and left the field all clear at the 8 o'clock. So, thanks to everybody who helped out, and yeah.
Any particular questions?
Comment.
Go ahead, comment.
I checked earlier this morning and all the squirrels are back and they're perfectly happy.
Excellent for the squirrels.
Big squirrels left the weekend, right?
And on that note, would you like to give us a repeater technical report, please?
Well,
Since you've been busy.
I've been busy because during field day, I took one of our spare repeaters that we have never used that I tried to reprogram and found out from Bernie, the reason why it wouldn't work after it was reprogrammed with the prototype software from Yaesu is because they gave me the prototype software to a different repeater. And I worked on it for ages trying to get it to work, but it's going to be a new version of our repeater that has dual receivers in it. One is a control channel. And since ours doesn't, it didn't work very well with that software. Anyway, Bernie got it straightened up, and right after field day, like last weekend, John and I went up. We swapped the 146730 out for a brand new repeater with the latest Rev software. So, all of you people that have been complaining about the squelch chills with noise and the warbling sounds, as of last Saturday, make a note now. If it comes back again, I want to know about it. Anything before last Saturday is the old system, and we're going to reprogram it and give it a thorough shakedown here in town first. The other thing we did up on the mountain is got the 6-meter cavities mounted and swept them all with a network analyzer. And the new cavities are like within 3 kilohertz, considering that's at a 52 megahertz. They were less than 3 kilohertz off. And the noise floor of the spectrum analyzer was limited by all the noise on the mountain. But they were like 90-something dB down in their notch and had 1.4 dB of loss where they're supposed to be passing. So they're mounted nice and stably in the building now instead of laying on the floor. And we swept everything. The SWR is almost unmeasurable. It's like 1.0 something something. So play with the 6-meter repeater and let me know what you think. And thanks to everybody who helped, especially Glenn as the general head do everything slave. We were sitting in there after everything was over Sunday night at like 7 o'clock, eating frozen yogurt, just sweating from moving towers. So it was a great event, and I'm glad it's done. What's the 6-meter? 62680, same off, 180 going in is the Gazenta, right, John? Where'd you go, John?
I'm over here now.
680 and 180 is the input, right?
What, about
The 52, yeah.
62, 680.
680 and 180 on the input, and 107.2.
Yeah, 107.2 hertz.
Deal, yeah.
Uh,
42. Yes.
Are you gonna reinstall the?
Yes. The order of precedence for the future of the repeaters is 6730. We're going to take 3 repeaters stacked, put them in a rack with a 7330 controller on them. Use the existing receive frequency that's up there for controlling the repeaters. Once that stack is in place, which will be 146.730, 147.075, 147.130. Once that stack is in place, then each repeater gets some additional functions, such as Echolink, Wires X, and the third one is I can't remember right now. IRLP. So every feeder gets some little fun thing added to it. That's the last step of dealing with the 2-meter repeaters. Anything else? Yeah, I know, ambitious. Next step is getting the stack finished.
And you'll be done by the end of July.
I'm heading back to New Jersey.
Yeah, right.
Sunday. So, bye. Yeah, it's true. It's July something.
Okay. Goodie table, there's some radios over here that Richard has, and I'm not sure where the books and magazines came from. But there's stuff over there. I think, no? No, John didn't bring anything.
I want to mention one other thing about field day.
Free magazine, and are the books free too? Books and magazines are free here on the goodie table too. And, yeah, see Richard for the radios. One more comment? No. Okay. Anything else?
Anybody wants to see the latest offering from California combined? This is your little N1 transceiver. You can actually be hunting with it.
Dennis has some show and tell that he would like to show and tell if you want to go take a peek at the new L-Craft. Okay. Hearing nothing else, 2050. Thank you everybody for coming. Have a fantastic evening and we'll see you on the air. Or hear you on the air.
You're very welcome. And I use that. I appreciate it. Oh, really? Yeah. I don't use them. They're out there. I find it out, right? Because I'm not like looking at them.
One other quick favor to ask you guys, the tables and the chairs at the tables are fine, but if you could grab the chairs that are behind there, and stack them by the wall, if you have a chance, I'd appreciate it, thank you.
Then it goes just go off here, and it comes up again. So while it's doing it, you have to like throw in, and then it goes silent. I just haven't been good at it. It's one of those things, like I'm good at geocacher. Yeah. That helps too. When I get near it, I become like a geocacher. That's a lot of fun. Setting up chat relay for sharing. My guess is that is that what you got? There's a guy. Yeah, that's the guy.
Ryan? Yeah, right by Kelsey Park.
I got a question
Okay.
on the mesh.
Mhm.
Okay, I've got a node, and I see somebody else's node, and he's got chat.
Okay. Yep.
So I can get in and put a message on there.
Yeah.
Where does it go?
It actually syncs across all the other mesh chats that can see each other.
Oh, it
No
does
kidding.
sync.
Yeah.
Okay.
It does sync.
That was the part I didn't know yet.
Okay, now, how do I send a picture to that node?
There should be a files page that says upload. I don't use that often. There's like a tab up there that says files or something, if memory's correct.
On his node?
On the web page, on the chat page when you're there.
Via the chat, so he gets into chat, then there should be a files.
Yeah, there should be like a files tab, if memory's correct.
Okay, now how do I send it to a specific node?
You don't send it specific. What happens is it stays on the first device that you log into, and just a link goes across the network for everyone to pull it from there.
So I can't hit a specific
No,
node.
it wouldn't target a specific node, but when they're on there, they should be able, when they see it, because they're on the network somewhere where they can see the mesh, they can then traverse the mesh and get to the node that has the file. They get a link in
So
the
basically, if you were to have your node and it's up there and it's running chat, then you would upload the file to your node and then send links to the other people and say, hey, come look
Yeah,
at
when
what
you
I've got.
upload it, it auto sends the link out, as I understand it.
To anybody.
To everyone, yeah.
Now,
Okay, I'll try
if you're
that.
trying to send, now what I think I hear you trying to ask is, you've got something that you want to send to another specific operator at a
Right.
specific location, then that may be a different set of protocols like FTP